I'm a little sick, guys, so I'm gonna speak a little different today, but I have one of the biggest boners for great animes like Baki. Like, I know Baki has plot armor, but this is probably the only time any character has managed to bring him to the brink of death. And if you have no clue what I'm talking about, then you'll soon learn why everyone fears Gaia, the man who is as much of a menace as usual.
Yujiro mentioned your fight to me.
Where is he? I'm ready to end this now!
Baki is still trying to be his father, so Captain Stridham here decides to send him off to a place where Yujiro became a legend. Without any warnings or heads up, Baki is thrown out of the helicopter, and as soon as he lands, he makes the mistake of underestimating his opponents, who are said to have never been seen before. To give you boys or girls more context, Baki is here to kick some ass. To be more specific, 5 legendary soldiers who are said to be like ghosts on the battlefield. But before Baki can even figure out what's happening, some guy breaks out of the tree and begins strangling with him. Baki's like, damn, where did this fucker come from, before passing out. Baki right now has encountered the rumored 5 super soldiers, and they reveal themselves in the most dramatic way. These guys came out of the ground, inside of a tree, in the waters, and on the leaves. This is also my first time watching this, so this shit's pretty crazy to me. As these soldiers are looking at Baki like, what's this little shit doing here? Baki tries to sneak them by doing the most telegraph spinning attack, which ends up getting him pepper sprayed. Like, these grown men are bullying poor Baki and got him crying for his mama. They soon tie his ass up, in which they begin deciding whether to kill Baki or leave his ass alive, in which they make the mistake of deciding to keep him alive, which will come back to bite them in the ass very, very soon. As one of the soldiers goes back to check on Baki, he finds him missing, and just like these soldiers, Baki somehow ends up inside of a tree and comes out flying at him, sending his ass rolling. Now, at this point, I'm questioning why these trees are freaking hollow and how they got inside of it in the first place. But the only conclusion I could come to is that it's just Baki logic. That's the only explanation that's gonna keep my mind sane. Baki then looks down at his ankles and finds that it's been cut. And if you don't know what that means, it pretty much means he's cooked. This soldier suddenly throws a knife towards Baki and begins running at him like a maniac. But Baki tries to block dude's attack with a knife, but his knife ends up getting folded. The soldier then begins glazing the fuck out of his knife, in which Baki tries to shut him up, but the other dude actually has hands and tries to shank Baki, but Baki avoids it with the expression that I always have when I lift weights. But not with consequences, because Baki's wrist has now been cut, but since he's the main character, he isn't bleeding to death. Baki quickly figures out bro's strategy and fixes the punch by delaying it. You can actually perform these moves in real life, which is the crazy part. Baki is now manhandling this grown man and knocks his ass out with one punch. Baki later buries him in the ground and says, "You just got your ass beat by a 13-year-old. Now I'm gonna go beat up the rest of your team. Peace." But the soldier dude just grins, probably thinking that Baki isn't him. I actually have no idea what these soldiers' names are, probably because Baki is beating up some small fries currently, but we do know that there's a Dark Souls boss residing within this area.
Or was that first guy the best chump you've got? At least he had the guts to come out and fight.
Baki goes looking for these guys without a care in the world, in which one instantly appears and tries grabbing Baki, but ends up getting kicked in the face full force. Baki lands thinking that bro's probably dazed, but nah. Dude devoured it is now looking at Baki like, what was that weak ass attack, before kicking dirt into Baki's eyes and beating his ass. Baki narrowly avoids his stomp and says, "You don't fight fair," causing dude to respond by saying, "You little shit, this is the battlefield, not a boxing ring." Baki's like, damn, fuck this guy, runs to the lake to wash the dirt out of his eyes, but the other dude says, "Let me help you out with that," and begins drowning Baki. After several minutes, he stands over Baki's dead body like, "Rest in peace, you little shit," and picks his ass up like some luggage, but suddenly Baki begins choking him and saying, "You don't fight fair?" Well, 2 can play that game before laying his ass out. Baki now has these 2 soldiers buried in the ground, but they suddenly bring up Gaia. If that name doesn't send chills down your spine, then you definitely don't know the walking disaster known as Gaia. These goons begin glazing the fuck out of Gaia and deriding him hard, but Baki's like, man, y'all were exaggerating, and begins looking for this Gaia dude, but encounters their medic instead, who is urinating in public. Dude turns around and accidentally flashes Baki and is like, oh fuck, I'm going to jail. But Baki could care less and beats the shit out of him and then buries him along with the rest. These guys begin glazing Gaia once again, which really got me wondering who the fuck Gaia could be. Baki pretty much becomes a thinker and goes full Light Yagami mode, trying to figure out who Gaia could be. In the morning, Baki and everyone hears something coming towards them. Baki thought it was the remaining soldiers, but it turns out to be a black-ass bear. I don't know what's going on here, but the bear suddenly falls, and just like me, Baki is baffled, confused, and shocked. But this shit gets crazier as some motherfucker bursts out of the bear, which is crazy to us, but to Baki it's a normal day-to-day thing, so he headbutts a dude and begins beating his ass while saying, "What was that dramatic-ass entrance?" and pretty much turns bro into a bitch. Baki jumps on top of him, and this shit gets really sus. Even dude is like, "Oh no, he's a minor." But that's the least of his worries now that Baki is beating his ass and got him curling up into a ball. Dude suddenly summons a bunch of blades literally out of nowhere and charges Baki. Baki avoids the attack with ease, but suddenly gets choked by one of the boys in the back. Baki is now about to get jumped, but as he's about to get finished off, he pulls out a knife he stole from the previous guy and cuts the rope restraining him. As they try to stop him, Baki does a Dark Souls roll and kicks the knife out of his hand, but it's not over as bro's face is looking a little weird. He suddenly rips his face off, revealing that he's actually Leatherface and that Baki is cooked. These guys turn out to be twins, but I don't know how that's gonna save them from the ass beating they're about to receive. These guys begin doing some weird ass Aikido moves, which actually end up working on Baki. We're now watching a miner from Minecraft take on two men at once. One of the guys tries to restrain Baki, but Baki blocks his attack, but ends up getting sneaked by the other. Baki begins to think that this is actually Gaia, which maybe it is, but if this is Gaia, then he's weak as fuck because these two end up getting the ass beat by a super miner. They both end up getting suplexed into oblivion, and as Baki thinks it's finally over and that Gaia was probably one of these guys, the medic suddenly begins convulsing and going full Kraken mode. The others are like, "Run, Baki, run!" But me and Baki have no idea what's going on. But this motherfucker begins screaming and banging his head on the ground and going absolutely bonkers. He suddenly gets out of the hole like the Terminator and stands there menacingly, in which he turns out to be Gaia.
You will die!
Gaia stands there like, "Y'all really got your ass beat by this kid?" and begins talking shit about Yujiro. This stone no jutsu goes on for a while, so I'll save y'all the headache. Baki's like, "You talking like I didn't just beat your ass last night," not realizing that the guy in front of him is a whole different person. Baki charges at him and tries to kick him, but misses, and no matter how much he tries to hit Gaia, Gaia just effortlessly weaves it, before punching the super miner and explaining that he's built different while giving us a lesson on physiology. I fell asleep during this part, but woke up when Baki finally made a move but gets grabbed by his neck, in which Baki tries to do an armbar, but bro is way too strong, so he gets his ass thrown across the entire river, before jumping across to punch Baki through a tree without any effort. Baki tries to box bro again, but gets cracked on the chin, and picked up once more, but this time gets slammed into the ground so hard that it creates a grave for Baki to sleep in. His ass gets disrespected even more when he gets grabbed by his hair and by his ass, and then thrown into the water at 100 miles per hour. They all think that Baki's dead, but don't realize that bro actually has plot armor, and gets out of the water with the most menacing expression. Baki begins walking towards them like the Terminator, and Gaia's like, "Who the fuck is this little shit think he is?" and tries to punch Baki, but Baki says, "Weave," and tries to flip him, but gets grabbed by his booty cheeks once again. This fight gets so crazy that it's hard to keep up with, but Gaia, bro, you can't be grabbing bro like that. He's a minor. These motherfuckers continue throwing hands, in which Gaia uses a special technique called Flame His Ass Jutsu, making Baki question his whole entire life choices. Like, Baki tries to attack Gaia, but Gaia's like, "You're better than this," and tries to turn this shit into a slice of life anime. This shit gets weirder as Gaia takes his shirt off and makes Baki look at his body. He then activates his domain called Backstory no Jutsu, in which we get a look at how Gaia became the menace he is today. Before Gaia became Gaia, he was called Numura, a crazy-ass mercenary who went around shooting orphans. Like, his ass was still crazy, but one day he got caught and was sentenced to death via a firing squad. He was so scared of dying that he instantly went bald, and when he heard the word aim, he began hip thrust in the air like, "Let me get a busted before I die." I swear, this shit is so freaky, but luckily Gaia was saved by his boys. But he is now bald, looking like a baby Asian version of Johnny Sins. We finally escaped the domain expansion, but Baki lost all morale after that and gets his ass launched into a tree. Gaia begins beating the shit out of this miner, but doesn't realize that Baki actually likes it and counters Gaia with a spinning kick from hell. Everyone is shocked that Gaia really got hit like that, and Gaia pretty much fumbles the bag and begins getting his ass beat by this 13-year-old, and after 10 combos, Gaia is on the ground looking dumb as fuck. But this is not over as Baki goes to kick him, but Gaia's like, "You really got cocky after landing a few shots on me?" and body slams Baki into the ground. But this barely hurts Baki, and Baki begins charging charging on him, but gets his ass thrown into the air. This pretty much turns into a Dragon Ball Z fight as Gaia somehow teleports right behind him, trying to really kill Baki, but Baki catches himself before attacking Gaia and folding him. Baki pretty much says, "Your ass was really roasting me? Look at you now," and headbutts him. But this motherfucker Gaia doesn't know when to stop, so he suddenly screams at Baki. All of his soldiers begin freaking out, realizing that Gaia is about to activate his second boss phase, Ear Rape Gaia. This shit is so loud that it created a whole ass earthquake, and Gaia pretty much approached Baki and began choking his ass. The scream stunned Baki so much that Baki begins punching himself for some reason and escapes by flipping Gaia over and kicking his ass across the map. Gaia suddenly throws water into Baki's eyes and begins cutting his ankles using a literal leaf, before jumping his ass and using a rope to hang his ass. Gaia be committing war crimes, but this shit gets more diabolical as Gaia begins choking the life out of this miner. But Gaia made a mistake of bringing up Yujiro and saying, "You ain't even half as strong as Yujiro, you little shit," causing Baki to wake up like, "Hell no! Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth." Gaia is absolutely baffled by this miner and asks, "Do you ever die?" Not realizing that Baki actually has insane plot armor. So no, he ain't never dying. Gaia becomes desperate and tries to punch Baki, but Baki hip thrusts his hands, breaking it, before beating the shit out of this war criminal, Gaia. This is pretty much over as Gaia is on his knees and ends up getting choked by Baki in the strangest way possible. Like, Baki just pinched his ass and he's pretty much just passed out. Now, we all ranking how much of a menace Gaia is, but this is not over because there is a reason why Gaia is on the list. It's because he's probably the only real D1 menace we've ever covered so far. After getting their ass beat by a miner, they all have dinner together by a fighter. But we're not here for that sweet shit, so y'all probably know Sikorski from my last video. But if you haven't, check out my last video called The Most Russian Man in All of Anime. But I didn't fully cover what Gaia did to Sikorski because of how insane it was. Sikorski, who was a contender in the menace tier list, was getting his ass beat by Jack Hama, in which he was taken to an underground fight arena to be humiliated. While the beating from the big ass guy Jack Hama was bad, it somehow got even worse when Gaia the war crime enjoyer comes out looking like the nicest man in all of anime. He got booed by the audience for looking hella sweet since, you know, nice guys always finish last, should've known that. I mean, he kinda deserves it when he comes out saying,
It's a sellout crowd.
Gaia quickly shuts them up by menacingly grinning and ear-raping everyone in the audience. Everyone in the crowd is now deaf and even Sikorski can no longer hear shit. But that's the least of the worries as Gaia is about to disrespect this Russian and demonstrate why he's literally the biggest menace in all of anime. Sikorski is a really dirty fighter, so Gaia decides to fuck with him by pulling out a knife and throwing it at Sikorski. Sikorski's like, "Fuck, I gotta get this guy before," but Gaia pulls out the equalizer and shoots Sikorski's toes, got him dancing like a ballerina. Everyone begins booing Gaia once again, acting like Sikorski didn't just literally use a spear on his last opponent. But Gaia is that guy, so he says, "Hey, don't worry, I ain't that much of a bitch," and tosses the gun away. He suddenly splashes sand at Sikorski, which is an actual attack that launches teeth into his body. He continues doing this with the most demonic expression known to mankind, an expression that rivals that of Yujiro's. The Russian is now being relentlessly barraged by missing teeth, and even the audience is affected by this weird ass attack that you'll only find in Baki. Gaia finally stops, and Sikorski looks at his body like, holy shit, but ain't no time for regrets now because Gaia is all sweaty and oiled up for him. Like, bro's looking at Sikorski like the most delicious meal. He suddenly sticks his hand into the ground and begins throwing sand into the air like a maniac. And after the dust finally clears, he strangely disappears, causing everyone, even me, to be confused as hell because this shit is literally impossible to do. Gaia is a menace, so the laws of physics doesn't apply to him. Gaia is actually now standing right in front of Sikorski, looking creepy as hell, and you already know someone is about to get violated. Sikorski tries to grab Gaia, but bro disappears and got Sikorski looking around, fearing for his life, in which Gaia grabs Sikorski's nose and got him screaming like a freaking girl. Sikorski tries to punch him, but dude just disappears, and this shit gets even more wicked as Sikorski begins freaking out and going absolutely crazy. But Gaia, like the menace he is, doesn't give a fuck and begins molesting him and got him jumping back in fear of what's about to happen. Gaia stops to tell bro that he's about to get violated, in which he fully fulfills that by disappearing and then reappearing to punch Sikorski in the face, and then kicking his ankles, which got him crying like a bitch. Gaia is now toying with him and begins brutally molesting Sikorski. Like, Sikorski gets kicked in the shin once again, but this time so hard that it got Sikorski screaming. But before Sikorski could say anything, he pokes Sikorski in the eye and says, "This shit is way too easy, bruh," before smashing Sikorski's balls into oblivion. And judging by the sound it made, we can assume that Sikorski will never have kids again. Gaia then suddenly begins counting down, which got Sikorski shitting himself, and when the timer finally ends, he gets kicked in the face hard. But Gaia ain't done, as he continues to count down from 10 before beating Sikorski to a pulp. This continues to repeat until Sikorski is literally traumatized and curls up into a ball, shaking and trembling. As bro tries to give up, Gaia stomps him and stands over him like, "You ain't shit, lil bruh," and it continues to count down and traumatize bro even more than what's necessary. Like, bro, let him get up, he's had enough. Gaia doesn't even count anymore and he just beats Sikorski up for no damn reason. Sikorski loses his mind and after facing a real menace for the first time, finally breaks and admits defeat in a really pathetic way. "Yeah, you win. Stop hitting me, please." I'm surprised Gaia didn't violate him even more. Lucky for Sikorski, Gaia leaves and lets Sikorski live with the traumatic experience of meeting a real G. Gaia is hands down an official Division 1 menace, the first one on the list. But he's not gonna be the only one, as Baki is full of fucking maniacs. Also guys, comment down on who you want to see next. But besides that, if you guys want to give someone a crazy strong handshake or just want to support the channel, make sure you check out the 100 kg gripper in the description. Also, I'm going to attempt the 100 kg right now. I heard some pop on my hand. Also guys, Hard Gainers is owned by me. Alright, have an excellent day guys. I can't do this still. Oh hell nah.